Okay. Gotta love technology. Okay. Almost ready to start. Don't have anybody watching yet, so I'm not overly concerned. Okay. All right. Hopefully this is working, maybe. Well, maybe somebody will watch, maybe nobody will. Either way, I'm gonna work on this map and we'll see what happens. I understand that there's a big Comicsgate live stream going on, so I don't suspect I will be picking anyone up from that crowd. But you never know. Someone could pop in on Facebook. I won't hold my breath, though. Looks like we might have one person. Possibly. So, nope. Never mind. Well, I'm left-handed, so it's not going to love me too much, but we can make things better. I like to be able to see while I'm drawing, so I like to have that. So, you know, I might actually try to move the camera itself because it would be better if you were able to see what was happening. Well, let's see if that's even possible. Kind of. Not really. Maybe. Maybe if I put it over here. Then we have the chords on the drawing pad. But you can always do this and scooch this over. Kind of. Things you think about once you're actually live, and then kind of just brain fart beforehand, I suppose. These chords are not liking me too much. Okay. Optimize your PC. Oh, it's optimized. Believe me. Okay, I think that's better. Certainly be able to see more in theory. Yeah. I might be able to zoom in a bit this way. Maybe if I gain more altitude and then go down. Scooch it this way. Well, it might actually be better without the light box on. Of course, I could always get really up close and personal. But that might not work out too well either. You know, I think it was just better the original way. So that's on me for trying to be clever. You know, I should know by now that things just aren't made for left-handed people. It's just the way it is. It's a right-handed person's world. So it's not too surprising. So we'll put this back over here and try to restore what was. Okay. Yeah. I mean, overall, I think that's better. Even though we have to deal with my left-handedness. But it is what it is. I'll try my best to keep it where you can still see kind of what I'm doing. So right now I'm trying to draw these pyramid things, which are, you know, this is the capital of Falnor, and over here is Herne. And no, you're probably not drunk enough for this stream. I'm really just, you know, seeing what happens. Because this is the first live stream I've done in years. So it's been a fat minute. And I'm also not necessarily an artist. So I'm like, I can do like minimal things. And in some cases I just have to like trace because I just don't have the ability to do drawings, as they say in England. I had this pyramid to trace with, and it just looked terrible. So I'm doing them by hand. But anyway, so what are these? Are these actual pyramids? Not really. I'm glad I'm doing great because it's all very new to me. But, you know, as I was teaching my kids that I'm professoring, the first time you do anything, you probably aren't very good, but it is in the process of doing it over and over that, yeah, draw the shape first, then outline, then details. Yeah, that's what I do with like this here, which maybe I can, or there's this castle up here that's kind of that scenario. But I figured with the pyramids, it's simple enough to where I can wing it. Like that's what I do with the trees and the mountains because that's something that doesn't take a whole lot of skill. But anyway, so the purpose of these pyramids is not like Egypt. Like this isn't a desert. It is grasslands. And it's kind of like their burial. I guess it is kind of like it is and it isn't like Egyptian pyramids. So like they are pyramids and they are burial sites, but the people aren't like literally buried inside of the pyramids because they're quite small. Like the pyramid might be as tall as like two people and as wide as maybe two people like laying down vertically. So like they're not like super big. I guess kind of what would be kind of creepy is if like they were buried standing up. That would be really creepy. Like in these little pyramids. I have a picture of what inspired the pyramids somewhere. That's really not that big. I don't know where it is in the world, this little pyramid thing, and it's like very modern looking. It doesn't look like Egyptian pyramids. That was a good one. But so I don't really know what the real life purpose of that pyramid that I have the picture of is for. But anyway, so Emerald Knights 2 actually begins with Yorin praying at one of these because people in Hanor don't necessarily worship their ancestors, but they do like believe in the importance of like visiting the dead. And as readers of Emerald Knights will come to discover, not everybody makes it through the book. So, yeah, people die. It's really not a super long story. Whenever in doubt, when doing a map, it's good to just work with dots. And it's also important to note that this is the rough draft, so it's okay if I mess up, because the refining really happens in the second and final draft. So like if I end up deciding I really hate these pyramids, I will redo it and come up with something better. Because like you can't see it with this light box, but there's a lot of eraser marks there. So that's just the way I do it, because I really, again, my artistic abilities are limited. That being said, I do make a pretty mean map to the point of which people have hired me to draw them maps for like D&D campaigns and such. And one person actually hired me to do their book map. It's actually like if you Google Fantasy Map Commission, come on, camera. It's Mistwood Publishing is one of the first ones that pops up, which is nice. I've actually gotten Mistwood has made more money from map commissions this year than we have in book sales by far. I think overall people are more interested in their own projects than they are in other people's. So like usually when I find somebody and like we're talking about, we get to talking about my book or whatever, within 30 minutes, I usually find out that they have their own project. So, then we end up talking about that. And I'm like, oh, well, they're just talking to me because they think I can help them in some way. How would you map out your future goals? Well, I have a lot of future goals. I have plans to write 9 novels, not including Emerald Knights, because Emerald Knights isn't a novel. I'd like to do a few of the Emerald Knight books. I'd like to do 4 Emerald Knights if it does well. Obviously, if it doesn't do well, then probably not going to do a whole lot of it. But I have sure enjoyed the process of Emerald Knights, so I would really love to see this be a gigantic success. We certainly still have the time to do it. Just kind of reinforcing the river there a little bit. But yeah, so my future goals. Well, right now I'm a professor in Kentucky. Or no, I used to live in Kentucky. Right now I'm a professor in Ohio at a small university. I would love it if I could get back into high school teaching. My kids could grow up and I can watch them grow up. And I'd like to be able to release my books. That's how I would map out my goals. I have in the past mapped out specifically year by year, this is what I'm going to release. But that literally never happens. It never comes. Like, if I was on the original schedule that I had, I would probably already have like 6 books out, and I have 2. So now I do have 5 written, but it's just taken longer than expected to get them out. Because, I mean, you never want to rush it. You don't want to rush the story because then it's crap. And then no one really wants to read it. Yeah, it's weird, but I actually prefer high school teaching. And I know that's weird, and you're totally right. It definitely takes a certain person to do it. And there was also a really big learning curve. Like, my first year of teaching was pretty god awful. But you kind of just develop a bit of a thick skin and kind of a bit of a mean spirit. And that doesn't mean that you're a mean teacher. But, like, if you're going to be a high school teacher, especially in a rough school like mine was, you kind of have to develop that thick skin so that when the circumstance inevitably pops up, you are ready to handle it, because it definitely will happen. Of course, everyone's first year is truly terrible. The teacher that was using my classroom while I had planning period, it was her first year teaching, and she would legitimately cry every single day. Like, whenever I would come in to relieve her, because my class was about to come in and begin, she'd be like, I'm going to go in the bathroom and cry. And I was like, oh, okay. I never cried, but it was rough at several points. Moving over to Hearn a little bit. This is the rival continent. This is like bad guy continent, good guy continent. It's very true. The state schools definitely do restrict your freedom. So, like, I taught psychology, and we were talking about this, well, the brain, because that's important for psychology, obviously. And we were talking about the parts of the brain that deal with pleasure, releasing, the pleasure centers, dopamine, all that stuff. And so there's this really interesting experiment that was done where they wanted to see what the male and female brains did during an orgasm. And so obviously, while I'm teaching that, I have to use the word orgasm, which apparently offended a student to the point of tears, because their mother ended up calling my principal in tears because I used the word orgasm. And so my principal calls me in and we're talking about it, right? And I'm like, this goes along with what I'm teaching. The other psych teacher, who's not here anymore, is the one that told me about it, and she's like the sweetest person ever. I'm like, what would you have me do in the future? Like, what other word would you use to describe that? And they didn't really give me an answer. So I was like, should I just like shrug and be like, the thing? And they're like, yeah, do that. And I'm like, this is ridiculous. That's the scientific term for it. But the actual finding of the study was quite fascinating. So during intercourse, the male brain shuts off everything except pleasure and um, alertness. The female brain, by contrast, shuts off everything but pleasure. And so, what the scientists then theorized is that one of the two had to be alert back in the day because, if something's hunting in the grass and people getting busy, one of the two had to be alert in case they became under attack. So, I mean, it's just a really interesting experiment that I was teaching about and got in trouble twice because then I apologized. Yeah, I know. I'm like, are you guys kidding me? Like this was okay, first of all, this was like a junior senior level class. This wasn't like freshmen. These kids should be like they should know what that is. And the fact that that word, which is the scientific word for it, was so offensive, I was absolutely baffled. And my coworker, who was my friend, my workplace acquaintance, was also just absolutely kind of infuriated by how ridiculous that was. So I totally get it. But one thing I will say about private school teaching, because I am a prof at a private school, is I'd actually say I have less freedom because it is a Christian private school. And so they definitely don't want me saying certain things. I don't think I could use the word orgasm for sure. And private schools pay dramatically less. Like, the profing is just kind of a side gig here, but it does not pay well. I get paid like $14.50 an hour. It's very dismal pay. Just outlining the rivers. Yeah, so it's kind of weird to say this, but I miss my teacher paycheck, my public school teacher paycheck. But where I live in Ohio, there are no jobs teaching related. I mean, it is. Oh, I live out in the middle of nowhere. We legitimately live 45 minutes from the nearest interstate. It's which growing up, that is not at all what I grew up with. So it's been weird. It's been an adaptation period. So what I'm going to draw next is Hearn has these hot spas. So that is what I'm going to draw. Drawings. Drawings, darling, drawings. Okay. A little bit of steam coming out. I have a reference map that I'm using so that I know where I remembered to put geographical features. You also want to space it out so it doesn't look too crowded but not too empty. I did do a really nice map for my last book, but I don't have it on me right now. And like I said, I have had maps commissioned in the past, so Maps are one of those things that at least my maps, that if you look really closely at the map, you'll see a ton of imperfection. Because again, I am not Ethan Van Sciver artist. But it's a lot of little things, and when you put it together, it looks pretty good. I ain't gonna lie, it looks pretty good. Like right now, I'm literally just drawing ovals. And then I put like a little bit of bordering on it and some steam and some shading. And when it's inked, it will look nice. It will look very nice. And the mountains in particular, I can usually get to look very good. I am going to try something new with the trees, with the forests. We'll see how it goes. It could be that I end up doing what I always do with trees. But I'm really hoping that this new strategy works out. And I do have something to help me get the trees. I don't know what map I saw that did this kind of tree, but it's really simple yet not. But we're gonna try it out. But first, we're gonna do some mountains, which is honestly, the mountains are my favorite. I just got an email. Who in the world is emailing me at 10:21 p.m. on a Saturday night? It's my work email too, so I'm like, who in the world are you? What are ye about? I had the decision of should I type my book or work on map for Emerald Knights. I chose map. For those of you that don't know, I write my books longhand because it's just the way my brain works. Like if I type it, imagine like a battery, right? If you type it, it all comes out like super fast. That's what she said. And so the battery empties really quickly. And so then you have to like pause while it recharges. Well, for me, that doesn't really, that causes a lot of breaks in thought, which kind of ruins the flow of what you're trying to do. So I find that handwriting you're kind of like the battery's filling while it's emptying at the same time. So it's a nice way to do it. The only negative is then you have to type it. And I really, really hate that. I did have a voice, like you just talk and it types it for you. But it's crap. And I've looked into it and I don't think that there's any that are better than that. Trying to get some jagged mountains here. See, the mountains really look nice once you start to shade it. Make it shady. Shady's good. Going on an escalation here. It's also nice if you can have it where like the mountain interrupts the country border, like on the ocean, kind of gives it a nice 3D effect. Like, because a mountain would actually do that if you were looking at it, if you could look at a country in the sense of that you were looking at this map. So I like to do that whenever possible. I totally got roasted last night for my accents. It was brutal. I don't presume that my accents are good, but Yeah, they were roasting me. I know that Ethan is doing a stream right now, so. But honestly, with 2 kids under the age of 2 and life with a full-time job and all that and a wife and everything, I got to do these things when I can. You know what I mean? So that's what I'm going to do. I guess the spas go up higher. So I guess I need to do that. Of course, I could always just say, nope, that's enough. And I think I am going to do that. Because I don't think that geographic feature would take that much space. These are relatively small islands, though. It's just we're zoomed up a lot. And like I said, the island I'm working on right now is kind of like the villain island. Like, not everybody on the island is a villain, but that's where the main villain lives. Villains. So where the main source of villainy is. Let's have a mountain interrupt the line of the river. Again, just kind of giving it that 3D effect. Whenever possible, we can have the mountains go up this way. And I will admit, I'll be the first to admit, I am much better at mountains with the pen. But it's still nice to shade in the mountains with the pencil. That's what makes it look really nice. All right, good luck with your sister. Hope everything goes great. I'm gonna keep doing this even if nobody's watching. These things happen. I appreciate the like on the video. Not gonna lie, earlier today I was feeling pretty disheartened in terms of just writing and being a writer and Mistwood Publishing in general. And then my little brother called, and it's not that he said anything, profound or anything. It's just, it was nice to have somebody. Because where I live, I'm all alone. That's really depressing, but that's the truth. All of my family is in North Carolina, and I am in a dopey town in Ohio. And so I get lonely. I don't really have anybody here. So, you just left to your own thoughts. They live near Greensboro. So I'm not exactly sure where geographically that is on like the map, but they live near I think in between Greensboro and Raleigh area. I would like to move there sometime because, like I said, it gets lonely over here in Ohio. I like North Carolina. It's nice. Have you ever had Biscuitville or Biscuit World? They're obsessed with it over there. It's pretty good. I got no problem with it. I wish I didn't have to drive through West Virginia on the way there, though. That's a beautiful country, but they don't have really a whole lot of gas stations. So, like, you'll be driving, and you can kind of see what is going on here. You'll be driving, and you'll be wondering if a gas station's even going to pop up, or if you're just going to run out of gas. not clunky. That's what we've been working on. But yes, I do like North Carolina. I would like to live there. Ooh, I do love cider. Like a lot. Apple cider, well, really anything made with apples. Apple pie is my favorite pie. Like, I don't want to say I like apple pie as much as EVS, but I really like apple pie. It's a weakness of mine. And then cider, whether it's hard cider or regular cider, I like that stuff. That's good stuff. Got some more mountains over here that we're going to do. Mountains, Gandalf. Mountains. Find somewhere quiet so I can finish my book. Bilbo Baggins. I realized that the actor of Bilbo died last year or 2 years ago. Not Martin Freeman, but Ian Holmes, I think his name was. Depressing. I liked him. Yeah, it's true. I did get some really unpastured cider in Ohio, but that's because, again, I live in Amish country, basically. It's kind of Appalachia-ish. People I've talked to from Appalachia say it's pronounced Appalachia. But I'm like, I don't think that's right. That doesn't sound right. I'm gonna go with the normal pronunciation. But yeah, I love me some cider. I'm really not a big pumpkin spice fan. And to go along with that, I'm actually allergic to coffee. So I can't have coffee. So the pumpkin spice isn't really a temptation for me. Although I can have chai, tea, and my wife informed me that you can have pumpkin spice chai lattes. But I'm like, that sounds kind of, sounds a little gay. I don't know if I want to do that. I don't know if I would even like it. I spent the morning watching the EVS debate from last night. Pretty much all 6 hours of it. And yeah. I very quickly realized this is not a debate for if Comicsgate is necessary and more of a trial interrogation of Ethan Van Sciver's character. But there were some times I wanted to jump through the screen and punch that guy. Why though? I was like super bored. And then it's like whenever you're bored and you like watch that, well, I'll also specify I wasn't like just listening to it. I was also cleaning the house. So it's not that I like was just spending my time listening to people argue, because I have better things to do. And part of my wife left for the weekend taking our 2 kids, and part of the deal was that I would clean, so because her grandmother is coming. So that was kind of why I was cleaning, and so I was like, I'm kind of tired of all the music that I listen to, so I'll give that debate a listen. So now what I'm going to do is trying to do something new with the forests. So I'm going to try to do, I don't know if it's going to focus. Something like that one there. Because normally I do like this. And I've always felt about it. So we're going to try to do something I saw one map artist do and see if I can pull it off after I shade in these mountains. It was incredibly frustrating, you're right. It was like, I mean, I personally hate political arguments. It never goes anywhere. It definitely needed moderation, but it would have it probably would have felt like the Donald Trump debates with Joe Biden, where they just keep talking over each other and it's nobody ends up really getting to say much. But yeah, it was something, that's for sure. And I think it was, I don't want to speak ill of anybody, but I think it was obvious that that guy like came like super prepared. But a lot of, again, what he had was more of like personal attacks on EVS and not necessarily proving. I think if the point of the debate was to prove that Comicsgate is not essential, I think that he failed, this Tyler guy. But I do think that he made some interesting points about, is the comic book industry in as dire trouble as sometimes it's portrayed to be? But then somebody else made a good point after that stream that, well, if everything is good as this Tyler guy is claiming, why are all of the comic book stores shutting down? I was like, oh, that's a good point. Yes, he was using logical fallacy after logical fallacy after logical fallacy. A bunch of false equivalencies, red herrings, and other logical fallacies that I can't think of at the moment. But mainly false equivalencies. It was like, I saw this post on Facebook by a kid that used to be in my youth group when I was a teenager. And it was like, if seatbelts were invented today, then, and then it like lists all like the, things people say about the vaccine. And I was like, that is a major false equivalency. Like, that is a glaring false equivalency. It's not the same thing whatsoever. So yes, Tyler was using pretty much exclusively false equivalencies. And it was fairly frustrating. Here's the test on whether or not I can do these trees or if it's going to look like crap. Yeah, that looks like crap. The key is to make it look just bland enough. I think I'm just overthinking it. Man, I wish I could think of the book that I saw where they did this tree method, because then I could actually like take a look at it and remember specifically what it looks like. I'm probably going to have to hunt it down. It has to be a book that I read in the past. It looks like we got somebody else. Hail. Good to see people here. Just working on a map, talking about North Carolina, trying to figure out some trees. Oh, but that one actually looks pretty. No, that looks like a bunch of arrows. Well, I might have to focus on something else and then go to the trees once I have figured out what I'm going to do with the trees. Because I don't necessarily want to go back to my other form of doing trees just yet. I want to give it a few more shots. I'm going to find that forest wherever I saw it, in whatever fantasy book I saw it in. And then I'm going to try that again. But there are other things to do on this map, certainly. But yeah, Tyler guy, I wanted to punch him in the face. But obviously I couldn't. But I wanted to. And again, like I said, the only point that I thought he did a decent job at not proving, but, you know, saying is that comics aren't actually doing as bad as maybe it's sometimes portrayed. And then somebody else was like, yeah, well, if that's the case, then why are all of these stores closing down? I was like, that is a valid point. You, I think, won, sir. You have conquered the argument. It's weird because it says that there's nobody watching, but at the same time, it's said that the whole time, and I know because there's people commenting that there are people here, at least on and off, at the very least. So I don't know what that's about. Again, this is my first live stream in a year and a half, and I just recently had both of my Twitter accounts deleted, so it's been an interesting adventure for sure. But yeah, Emerald Knights, illustrated novella. Hoping that it does pretty good. I did put a link to the campaign in the description of this video, in case anybody's wondering or wanted to look at it. I'm a little bit different than most comic skaters you've probably come across in terms of the campaigns I do, because I've never actually done a comic book. My first campaign, which was successful, actually got over the goal by over 1,000. That was a novel, which I have here. Yeah, here it is. Boom. It's 6C. Oop. Focus camera. Got some decapitation on the cover. It's nice size. Kind of wish the camera didn't reverse everything, but. And so the current campaign is not a novel. It is an illustrated novella. So it is much shorter, and it has tons of artwork in it. Here's some of the inside, which actually the map that I did is in here. So this is what something like what the map I'm working on now will look like. When it's done and scanned. And I will, the book that Emerald Knights is a physically bigger book, so it'll be more like horizontal. It looks classy. But yeah, love the smell of a book. It smells really nice. And there's actually artwork in here somewhere else. I want to say it's page, yeah, there it is. Although I will not hire this artist again because I discovered that he is quite intense, to say the least. Him and Kyle guy from last night probably would get along pretty well, would be my guess. So, yeah, that was my last campaign. And this is actually still available at mistwoodpublishing.com. But Emerald Knights is my current campaign, and it is an illustrated novella. And so much shorter and with lots of artwork. And it's really nice artwork. It's kind of like, well, I could probably show some of it, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Because I don't have all the fancy live stream equipment, so I'm using just like webcam feature through YouTube. But let's see if this works. It'd be cool if it did. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it is working. Awesome. So yeah, this is Emerald Knights. I don't know why a lot of the pictures aren't showing up. I'll have to look into that. But I could easily pull up the art and we can actually see it because Indiegogo is blocking it for some reason. This is kind of what the artwork looks like. It's inspired by like the artwork you see in some of the Tolkien books that aren't Lord of the Rings. They have all these like graphite pencil looking things, pieces of art. I don't know why, but I really like this arm. And of course the eyeball getting plucked out. Who wouldn't like that? This is probably my favorite one so far is here, which is why I use it so much. So you can kind of see the vibe I'm going for. So this interesting story, the artist was using a scanner and we were noticing it was taking out tons of detail. So he bought like a picture, like a light box. And so he's able to like take pictures. This one is a little bit crooked, but we're getting that fixed. And then I like this one. This is the main character's wife. Her name is Yafa. Yafa. I don't know where I came up with the name. Carnivorous plant in the story. Some vines. Here we have one of the Comicsgate pinups. An arrowhead. So arrowhead in the snow. Here's Connery. Oops. Here's Connery's pinup. That one's only $3. It's pretty nice. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. This one is going to be colored, but so if you don't know, all of the profit is being donated to charity to help pair service dogs with veterans. So this will be a print that everybody gets for free, all backers that are physical backers. And yeah, there is more, but I obviously don't want to spoil anything, although there is one that's like super cool that I don't remember where I put it. I could try to find it, but we can restore it to the camera first. If anyone's still watching and I haven't lost people's interest. Let's see. I think I might have lost people. That happens. Well, to the person that might watch it later, or again, I was saying that I didn't have watchers when I did have watchers, so it could be that it's just pulling my leg again. But I'm pulling up some other artwork, including some that nobody's seen before. And And then we're going to get back to trying to do the forest again. I'm determined to do it. I am determined to make this forest come alive. I stayed up till 2 a.m. last night because I was on Vic's Livestream. Okay, now let's look at this art. I just want to show it off because I ain't gonna lie, this is pretty awesome. So this is the interior, right? I wanted the beginning of every chapter to be black because it's kind of the gimmick of the story. Here it is. So those are my evil races, if you will. Lif, Wendigo, or Mriller. This is probably the one I'm most proud of. These are pretty much like goblins. And these are from Native American mythology. But this is all me, man. All me. Although Wendigos don't look like that in mythology, and goblins don't necessarily look like that. So, I mean, there's still some creativity in there. But and then here we go. Here's another Comicsgate pinup. And this is a rough draft of another one that is not done yet. So all of those will, oops. I really hope I didn't just exit out of that. Oh, crap. Temporary issues. It's a laptop issue. But we are coming back. Sometimes it accidentally hits the X. Come on. I believe in you. Okay, we're back. So yeah, going back to drawing the map. I just wanted to do that real quick. Show off some stuff. Hey, I was just showing your artwork that you have so far. I haven't checked my Instagram, so you might even have it done. I don't know. But just showing off some of the art with the campaign. Again, it is showing that nobody is watching, but I can see people in the comments, so it must be just lying to me. Why would it lie to me? I am going to get these trees right. I refuse to just do my normal trees. Oh, that was actually pretty good. Okay. We'll do another one. Maybe. Not great, but maybe, again, with map drawing, it's not that every bit looks like breathtaking. It's when it's all added together. And the ink makes such a difference with map drawing. Drawings, Philip, drawings. Nope, that was a terrible tree. Terrible, terrible tree. You're better than that. You're better than that. I have this knack for hiring artists that are not American, unless I'm doing something with Comicsgate. And even then, not all the time. Hours got weird from staying up, slept during the day, gonna get back to the show. I get that. I do. And I just want to take this moment to express it in words, how much I like your artwork. Like Liam Sharp is one of my favorites, and I also really like the Conan the Barbarian stuff, and I feel like your artwork at least somewhat resembles that in the best way possible, while still being uniquely yourself. Very, very pleased with what has been put out so far. That's probably the best tree so far. All right, it's going pretty well, I think. Unless I end up discovering that I put in the wrong place. People that know me know I'll just break out in random accents that aren't usually really good. It's just me doing them. Maybe it's to alleviate nervousness? I don't know. I do it though. Again, I am going to still look and see what this other... Oh. Again, being left-handed really has its bummers. Yeah, and I feel bad that, it takes long because I feel like that's my fault. Because I'm, as one of my illustrators put it, very particular. I've tried to become more flexible. It is right. I can never be right because I'm left-handed. I got some really bad stories of being a left-handed person. Like, I worked at a Wendy's for 5 years when I was in high school and then college, middle of nowhere, Wisconsin. And my manager, who was a druggie, and by that I mean he dealt like meth out of the drive-through window. He was also left-handed. And so the fryer, when you take the fries out, a right-handed person swings it this way. So all the hot oil goes into the fryer. A left-handed person goes this way. And that's where all the fries and the nuggets are stored and where people are scooping fries up and putting it in, right? So he's left-handed. I'm doing the fries, scooping it, and he doesn't let the oil drain. He just flings it. And I got a second-degree burn like this big right there on my wrist. Left-handedness, man. Well, I am definitely happy. So like my cover artist guy that does this, he does really good stuff, right? But he is the master at, when I say taking longer, I mean like months. Once he was 6 months after he said he was going to be done. Not from when I hired him, but when he said he was going to be done. So when I say it's not a big deal, I really mean it because I'm used to a lot of it. So like whenever I hire him, I always hire him like way earlier than I am supposed to. Or like I would hire somebody else. So really, all seriousness, I wouldn't beat yourself up. Because I'm also glad to hear that you think I've been good to work with, because my first illustrator I ever worked with, he hated me. And it's because he was lazy. And if I had a copy of my first book with me, I would actually be able to show you. I had told him to lessen the amount of hair that this character had, and he didn't finish it. And so, like, I had him fix it enough, but you can still see it if you really look on the actual printed cover. So I've had a lot of artists that weren't too nice to me. So I don't know if this forest has ended up looking as good as I think it should look. Again, I'm giving it a shot. I could totally end up just doing what I normally do with forests. Yeah, it can. My current art is Russian, and his artwork is really what I'm looking for in a fantasy cover. You know, and he's not that expensive either. Um, so I'm kind of willing to put up with it. But the guy from England, the first cover guy, oh my gosh, it was not worth it. So like England, they don't have a whole lot of corn. And the second cover I had him do, which I ended up not even using because he just didn't do a good job. Um, they don't have a lot of corn there. And on the second cover, it was supposed to take place in fall, to have a cornfield in the background. And I'm not kidding you. I had to send him pictures of a cornfield because he just wouldn't get it right. He didn't want to. I don't think he didn't want to. When he first gave me the cover, the corn was like the corn stalks were like legitimately long grass. The end product, the corn is still too short. It was infuriating. And needless to say, I didn't work with him again. Now, going back to the Russian, he isn't too hard to work with, but he gets like his feelings hurt easily, if that makes sense. So, like, if I ask for corrections, he like it sounds like I've really hurt his feelings, and I'm like, I mean, I don't know what to tell him. Maybe it's the English Russian. I don't think he speaks English very well, but um, yeah, it's something. So what I've been doing is I have this artist in Brazil who is very reasonably priced, and he like wants to get details. Like he's not interested in doing what his take is on the, he wants to do my character as close as he possibly can get it to how I see the character. So what I do now is I have him do the first go at the character, and then I send the Russian artist that because it's already drawn, it's already figured out. He just has to do it in his own style. I feel like I have too many trees over here and the perfect amount over here. So I'm trying to figure out which ones I need to erase. Let's do this. Yeah, I can only imagine that is the case. I know when I've done map commissions, I don't think I've ever had anybody ask for corrections, but if I had, it probably would. It would hurt. And that being said, doing a map commission, because again, I'm not an artist, but having that experience has made me more sympathetic towards artists that I work with, because in a very small way, I experienced a taste of what they go through. So I try to be very polite, and it's an interesting balance of trying to allow the artist to do their thing while still keeping the character loyal. Yeah, he is really phenomenal. Is it kind of weird? Like, I'm always kind of like, he lives in Russia, right? I'm always kind of scared that he's gonna like die. You know what I mean? Because at the very least, I would like artist, like the same artist for every trilogy at the very least. So if, I mean, it's a stereotype of Russia, but like if anything like happened to him, and of course I would be, I don't want him to die because he's a human being and his life matters, but selfishly, you know, I want him to at least be able to finish the trilogy. Yeah, he also did the artwork for the main character Yorin that you're drawing. So that he's the one that did that too. I think I'm getting to a point where I'm eliminating enough trees to where it's going to work. I just have to be able to draw them. I'm going to be looking up fantasy map forests all night because this isn't exactly what I want it to look like. Again, this is the rough draft, so it's like this is where I figure what works and what doesn't work. I really wish that I was an artist because then I could just punish myself for not being able to do something. So yeah, it's an interesting balance of I really respect artists and I want to be nice and I don't want to have a reputation of being a douche. But you also want your work to be accurate. I have also had an artist that was kind of a bully, so I kind of had to learn to be assertive in that regard. I kind of just had to learn to be assertive just being a teacher because your teachers will freaking destroy you. Yeah, so that's like my main fear is that he'll up and die. And, oh, it's like, especially with everything that's going on, you just never know. Them Russians, they like their vodka. But I mean, he doesn't seem like a party animal. He really likes his cats. We're going to move on to this forest. I think I've botched this one enough. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not erasing very well. But yeah, anytime there's like a big expanse in which I haven't contacted my Russian artist, I'm always like, is he alive? Because he doesn't post on Instagram hardly at all. Another fear of mine is that the artist will be like, no, I'm just not doing that anymore. But it's like I can't afford to do all of the covers that the minimum amount of covers I'd want him to do. Because I need to know the spine thickness of the book, right? I need to know how many pages the book's going to be, and I really don't know that until the very end of the process. Because the spine thickness really decides how big the artwork needs to be. It's kind of an annoying part of the process because the formatters are like, Well, we need to know the thickness of the spine so that we can do the margins properly. And the printer is like, well, we can't tell you the thickness because we need to know the page count. And we won't know the page count until the formatters are done formatting it. And the artist can't finish the artwork unless you have the spine thickness. So it's, and I'm not going to lie, the people that format my books are absolute jerks. I mean, they have the worst customer service, but they're so cheap that I put up with them. But believe me, I have looked into alternate options because, man, are they the worst. It's Woodsworth Press, I think. Yeah, I used to be a major pushover myself. It was being a teacher that forced me to really just become assertive, because like you just have to, or like those kids are gonna eat you for breakfast. One time this kid told me I had stubby legs. I said, I don't think so. I have muscular legs. Like, you got chicken legs. When I first went to college, it was to be a pastoral major. And I realized that that was a terrible fit because I'm not that religious and I'm not nice enough. I'm not a cheerleader, like, and I'm not very good at putting on a mask and pretending to be happy. So teaching was a natural pick. And that was one of the smartest decisions I've ever made, because that would have been a terrible job for me. But I do like, it's weird. I'm shy. I'm really shy when I don't know people, like, intimately. But as soon as I get through that shell, people can't shut me up, and I end up saying stuff I regret. But when I teach, it's like a switch turns on, and I often have other teachers complain about how loud I am because they can hear me through the wall, the cement wall, or down the hallway. And I take great pride in that. I guarantee you no kids are falling asleep in my class. No, sir. Of course, I make it a lot of fun, too. I legitimately did in psychology, at the very end, I made a Batman unit using this book. Oops. Oh, I don't think. This book. And like they'd get to diagnose like the Batman villains with if they had a disorder, would they most likely be labeled insane in the court of law, that sort of stuff. And it was a lot of fun. We got to watch The Dark Knight. I would show episodes of Batman the Animated Series as the observation of the subject. That was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it, and I know that the kids enjoyed it too. Yeah, it's a really good book, and it's kind of funny and sad at the same time. The author found out that I was doing that, and he was like, yeah, that's really cool. And he friended me on Facebook. And I guess I wasn't the only one to have that idea. So he wanted to make like a group for us. The people that had developed his book into a lesson plan. Of course, I was a little bit hesitant because I was like, is this guy going to somehow develop a lawsuit against me because I used his book in the classroom? Because you never know. You never know. And no, that wasn't the case. But on my Facebook, I tend to post political things, and he's not friends with me anymore on Facebook. So I'm assuming I offended him because I was looking at his timeline, and he's definitely not on the same political side as me. He's what you would imagine from a Californian. Certainly. Looks like Mark. I will say my artist for the Emerald Knights is also really cool. I really like his art. Well, the trees on this side have turned out better. I still don't know how it necessarily will look in a final product. I am going to add bloody left-handedness. I am going to add some texture. Kind of fill in the dots with dots. How great was Polka Dot Man in Suicide Squad? That actor did a great job in a movie called Prisoners with Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal. He's really good at playing freaking weirdos. And then I'd probably do something like of course with a pen that will make a dramatic much more look to it. Yeah, I understand that. Facebook, I'm pretty sure at this point, everyone that doesn't like me for politics is no longer following me. This pen isn't working. With Twitter, I've tried not to post things, but I lack self-control sometimes. Thankfully, everybody in my immediate family is the same in that regard. So, we got that going. Yeah, the texture definitely helps. It's really not very... That's what I like about map doing, is it really doesn't require any skill, just tediousness. Which, if the way this forest drawing, if it ends up looking good, then that will save me a lot of time, because my old way of doing it was incredibly tedious. I think I had to draw like 4, maybe even like 1,000 little circles on my last map. It hurts. Give me arthritis. I don't know how artists do it, man. I have a tremendous respect for artists. We have the forest. But again, I'm like, is that the way I'm going to end up doing forests? No, I don't know. I'm going to have to find a way to maybe add more texture to it, because it does feel a bit empty, which is what I was concerned might be the result. But I'm really tired of drawing bubbles. And I think that doesn't necessarily produce the best result. And again, pens really make a big difference in terms of what this looks like. But we can go up here. Oh, one of my editors messaged me. You want to talk about difficult? It's editors. All right, that's good. My editor is several months behind and only not even halfway through the book. Because I don't have tons of resources, I have to predominantly rely on English majors and people that would be qualified to be an editor but aren't actually an editor. Thankfully, with Emerald Knights, because it's shorter, I was able to afford editing from a quote-unquote professional editor. Quote-unquote. If I do say so myself, I don't know if y'all can see it, but I am quite happy with this castle up here. It might be kind of hard to draw with a pen, but in terms of what my artistic ability is capable of, I'm quite proud of that. Boy, I wish I could draw, though. There's this guy that followed me on Instagram, and which, by the way, Instagram is like the one place I think it's easiest to stay away from politics. Anyway, he friends me, and he's a guy that forges blades, knives, axes, swords. He lives somewhere in England. So he's like, follows me, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I like, that I own 2 swords that are sharpened. And eventually I'd be interested in getting some of my characters' weapons made. I mean, that would be cool. Who wouldn't want that? And anyway, it keeps going on for a while. And they're really trying to pressure me into like getting it now. And I'm like, I do not have the money for this. And then they keep raising the price. And I'm like, okay, we're done here. And it was quite awkward. It's not what I thought I'd be doing in the morning, is messaging someone, I don't need to buy this sword right now. That'll be $1,000. Well, I can't pay that, and all in one, nobody has $1,000 just laying around. And they're like, well, you can make payments. I'm like, you can take however long you need. I'm like, all right, well, I could probably do it in like 10 months. They're like, that's too long. I'm like, but you said whenever, however long. And they're like, 3-4 months. I'm like, yeah, that's not possible. And they're like, maybe you could make a deal with a local seller and sell our products in their store, and you could make money that way to pay for it. I'm like, this is getting really kind of scammy and weird. So I stopped messaging them. Yeah, that was getting really weird. So I was like, I'm going to peace out. No thanks. This seems kind of sketch. I'm not going to get scammed into giving you money if you seem sketchy. I have dealt with too much of that in the past, to the point of once I had to call the police. That was an intense day. I also got frisked once because I was accidentally locked out of my own house, and I was trying to get back in. And the cops thought me and the locksmith were or our neighbor thought me and the locksmith were like trying to break into the house. So the cop shows up with his gun drawn and frisked me, made me get on my knees. It's a bit intense having a gun pointed at you. Of course, my father-in-law, he had a gun pointed at him by a criminal, which I imagine would be a little bit more terrifying. We got another forest up here, I guess. It's really just kind of visualizing where the forests are going to be. I'm kind of surprised that nobody from my Facebook has come here. Yeah, I would be interested in seeing that cover and the map you did. It is very tedious. Again, I'm just experimenting with this new way of doing forests. I'm really hoping that it looks better in pen than it does in pencil. But I do remember seeing a map somewhere where they did it like this, and I really liked the way it looked. So I'd really like to find that and then maybe practice drawing trees like they do so that I could kind of make it look better and get a real feel for if this is something that I think would look good. Initially, I thought it was Game of Thrones, but I did check that, and that's definitely not it. I mean, they kind of do something like this, but not really. But, again, the maps look really good once they're done. Yeah, I'd be interested to see the map and the cover that you did. That's another look at what the maps look like when they're done. So I'll put like a border around the edge and then these little lines, which again, if you look really close, it looks kind of flawed, but from a distance, it looks really nice. It's just small details that accumulate into looking good. The best way that I can describe it. I think swamp's probably the easiest to do. And also the most fun. I like drawing swamps. I don't think there are any swamps on this landscape, though. Of course, I am the author. I could always change it. Part of this is to figure out the landscape of the islands. So this story is connected to the novel. It's on a completely separate continent. Well, no, that's not true. It's above the main continent, like up on kind of like the very far north. It's actually on this map. Let's see. So if we look on this map here, the map, part of the map I'm working with is right here, these two islands. So I took a picture of that and I zoomed it up. I enlarged it like an old man's prostate. Printed it out and put on geographical features so I knew where forests and such would be. Which reminds me, I also need to do spelling for this, the capitals and the towns. But that will have to happen another night because when it comes to the lettering, I have to use a stencil and such because I'm a left-handed person, so it has to be. Lefties typically have bad handwriting, and I am not the exception to that rule. The forest does look really good over here. It's just there's a lot of eraser marks. It's like I got the perfect spacing over there. Now, in the past for tundra, I have done certain things, but I don't know if I'm going to do that here. Of course, most of the landscape here is crags. So, the question is, how do I want to do that? Down here would just be plains, but I could make it swamp. It's good to have a variety of landscapes. I think I remember what I did for plains, but do I want to do that here? I've got a whole lot of tundra over here, which I will definitely have to add texture. You don't want to just leave blank open white space on a map, in my opinion. Some people would disagree with me, and that's totally fine. Let's see. How do I want to do crags? Because these aren't like normal. It's like Scottish Highlands. So I could just do hills. Hills can be fun. Though sometimes it looks like somebody's butt when they're laying down. If they have a really flat butt. So it's probably a dude. Looks like a dude's butt. It's the visual we all want, right? Oh, that looks quite nice. Usually, I'm not gonna lie, usually I suck at hills. But tonight, they're looking nice. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. I think usually it's because I try to make them too short and stubby. Who wants a short and stubby hill? Nobody. Of course, the same look could be given to sand dunes. So it is important to label things. There's another thing with what we're doing here is figuring out where we want to put the letters and the labels for towns and forests and such. But yeah, these hills are looking really good. Especially because with hills, you can put some nice texture on them. Looking really nice, Clark. What's that smell? Bride Pussycat. Love me some Christmas Vacation. Uncle Eddie. You serious, Clark? I don't want to go down sledding no hill with nothing between me and my brain and a piece of government plastic. Really think it matters, Eddie? Well, if I hit the part here, it won't dent. It just, my hair just ain't gonna look right. I love that movie. But it's not really Christmas season. And you know what? I'm okay with that because Halloween is my jam. I am very eager for Halloween Kills to release. Well, for what it's worth, I'm very, very appreciative that people actually showed up to this. You know, for the times that people have watched. I honestly, if you would have asked me before I started, I would have thought that nobody was going to come. That's what I thought. So, yeah, it feels good to have people show up. Especially because I was feeling pretty down earlier today. You know, it happens. Campaign is a little bit quieter than I would have hoped. You know, just in general. But we still got time left. I'm gonna try to get on more live streams and get this thing funded. I mean, it is funded, but you know, raise some money for charity. You know, it's also a matter of I'd like to sell more than 10 copies, which is the number that we're currently at. You know, and I wish that I could put it at a cheaper price. I do. Unfortunately, I have put them as cheap as I can. I think one thing that made my other campaign more successful is the price. I was able to sell those books a lot cheaper than most campaigns, and I think that definitely served in my favor. I know that you guys can't see, but this farmhouse here is really well done, in my opinion. I will show the camera close up at the end, so if you're watching this later, I will. You can skip to the end and see what it looks like, the progress that we've made, which I won't be going much longer. But this is, you know, map drawing is tedious, but I find it also relaxing. So there is that. I find it really relaxing, actually. It's mindless. Because it's tedious, it's also mindless. Really, the thing you really just have to make sure you pay attention to is that your shading is consistent. Because you don't want your shading to be off. Because if the sun is setting in the west, and then every once in a while it's not, then that's awkward, and you don't want that. And people are going to notice, and that's going to be embarrassing. They'd be like, "You had one job, and you botched it. Oh boy, did you botch it?" You're like, "I'm sorry." I think adding a mountain every once in a while is good. Because it's crags, you know, it's not always hills. not always hills. We're going to have some mountains every once in a while. So really bad English accent. That's what I'm doing right now. Because why not? What a load of rubbish. I've had plenty of dwarves with their skins on. Alright, almost done for the night. One thing I've always been good at is shading. Which does get lost a little bit with dealing with pens. Unless you're really, really careful. Smearing a little bit of the shading always helps. Even it out. And going back to, oops, forgot this little thing. Going back over to Hearn to finish it up for the day. I'm just gonna shade in these geographical features. The dad sleep schedule is kicking in. Yeah, the shading is going to make these look pretty good. Oh, I have to shade this mountain. Don't forget that. It's like the biggest mountain on the continent. And then I think with these I just need to shade them in fully. Okay, so the last thing we're gonna do is color in this a little bit, maybe. Probably not, though. Yeah, we're not gonna worry about that. All right, I'm going to turn the lights on fully and show you what we have accomplished so far. Again, this is the rough draft, so it's really just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work, what looks good and what doesn't look good. So, we might not even end up going with this style of forest, and it will most definitely look different in the end. Okay, So let's pick you up, maybe. You can kind of see what we've done there. Looks a little crooked because I can't seem to hold the camera right. Now you can see all the erase marks of the trees where I was trying to figure that out. Mountains. And then going over here. Again, I'm going to look into those forests again. These are those mountains I was saying I was doing, or hills. I was saying I was doing good with. Focus camera. You can see how hard I struggle with this castle. Focus camera. Do it. I believe in you. That's where we started with these pyramids. I really apologize for the camera not focusing. And we have the titling. So yeah, that's what we were able to accomplish. There really wasn't much detail on there until today. So peace out. Keep it real. Have a good night. Thank you to those that watched. It was a pleasant surprise, and I appreciate it more than you can possibly know. Giving your time to me, this, small time creator. I really, really, really appreciate it. You made my day. So have a good night. Take care of yourselves. And have a good night.